Do you ever leave conversations wishing you'd said what you actually meant? Hey, Jay Williams here, and welcome to another Pocket Coaching. Maybe it's a team meeting where you hold back your real opinion. Maybe it's with your clients where you don't actually push back on their unrealistic expectations or where there's scope creep. Or is it with your partner where you say, fine, when things definitely aren't fine? And you're left thinking, why can't I just actually say what I'm thinking in the moment? Now, this conversation came about because one of my clients I was working with, one of my one-to-one clients, this is someone who, successful entrepreneur, doing 7 figures in their business. We'll call him Marcus for the purpose of this. He actually said to me, I'd like to be more assertive and communicate my perspective. And what he was noticing is that in high conflict situations with his co-founder, who was quite bullish, he would completely shut down. And he'd have something he'd want to say, but he wouldn't say it. He'd go quiet. And then afterwards, he'd just spend all his time kicking his ass because he didn't speak up when it mattered. And now it was affecting the business. Now it's affecting the way he was feeling. And it's in this conversation I realized, working with Marcus and the hundreds of people that I've helped over the years, is that most successful people know how to build businesses, like as in the business owners I work with. But they struggle with leading their own thinking, with leading themselves, leading their emotions. And despite looking like they quite often have it all figured out, they don't trust their own voice in those crucial moments. They don't have this unlimited confidence that you might expect. They're just human like you or me. And the issue quite often isn't knowledge or tactics or strategy. The issues that they face really is that, like most human beings, they want to be liked, they want to belong. They are scared of confrontation or the uncomfortable feelings that come up during confrontation. They might find themselves, they don't trust themselves and they don't recognize their own value. And the problem with this is when you don't see your own value clearly, you assume others won't either. So you hold back, you soften your message, you filter yourself, or you avoid having difficult conversations altogether. True assertiveness isn't about being aggressive, despite what you might have been told or experienced, or forcing your way in. It's about trusting that your perspective matters. Trusting that your perspective has value, has weight, and trusting that you can deal with the fallout. Now, in our sessions, me and Marcus worked on 2 things. Number 1 was a fear of confrontation and the need to be liked. He was the guy that was leading his business from a place of, I want people to like me. I don't want to be a dickhead boss. I want to be a good boss. I want to be the kind boss. And he misinterpreted good as the guy needs to be nice all the time. He's too much of a nice guy because he had deep fears around confrontation and fear that people wouldn't like him. The second thing we worked on is developing trust in himself to see his true value, to see what he actually brought to that business, what he actually brought to that relationship, so we could start to see that his perspective mattered. And he had something that other people didn't have. And in the weeks that followed, Marcus stepped up his leadership massively, started speaking up, challenging opinions and decisions. And what this led to, and this is what was really exciting when you get this, and I'll talk to you about how you do it in a second. It led to him securing business deals with some of the top sports teams in the world. Now, the issue wasn't that he didn't know how to assert himself, as in the knowledge. The issue was that he didn't trust that others would see him as valuable. And that's because he didn't see his own value first. So here's a 3-step process that I use to help Marcus and will help you communicate your perspective with a lot more confidence. So number 1, recognize your value first. I'd encourage you to take a pen and paper and write down 3 perspectives or insights only you can bring to your business or your team. What are 3 perspectives only you can bring that nobody else can bring? And this can be based on your experience of life, your experience of business, whatever it is. Who you came to be today, you have unique perspectives as a result. So, for example, I was in the Air Force for 9 years. I've been in business for 11 years. I used to be a professional DJ. I used to be a footballer. I used to be a golfer. Now I'm an ultra marathon runner. I can offer perspectives that very few people can offer from ultramarathon and apply it to business, right? I use it with my clients all the time. What do you see that others miss? What experience do you have that's absolutely unique? And again, I appreciate many of you might be listening to this and you don't have big teams or anything like that, but do this for yourself. What do you see that others miss? Right? These are your gifts. This is your unique value. And you can't communicate your value if you don't recognize it in yourself. And most people will tend to skip this step and wonder why others don't tend to listen to them. Moving on to the next step, step 2, practice the valuable perspective frame. Well, what does this mean? Well, a frame is anything you want it to be. So, examples of frame might be, instead of saying, I think we should, so that is a frame, I think we should, right? That sets a tone for what you're about to say next. That's what a frame really is. Try this instead. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm seeing. Instead of, I could be wrong, but based on my experience, right? Again, this is a really good frame because it sets you up as like, you're not saying I'm trying to be right. You're not trying to push an agenda or an opinion. You just say, I could be wrong with curious tone, but based on my experience, I believe this. Instead of, oh, this is a good one. Brits are great at this. Sorry. Sorry to interrupt. Try, I want to add something important. Now, you're not being arrogant by having a perspective. You're being clear about your contribution. So use the valuable perspective frame. Step number 3, start with low stakes practice. Don't go into big meetings and all of a sudden start trying to share this stuff. If you're feeling really courageous, absolutely, but I'd recommend you start small to build your confidence. It takes practice to assert yourself in this way, because there is going to be responses. There's always going to be a reply, typically. So you need to be able to deal with that. And if you can't handle it in a big meeting, then it might be worth starting low to build your confidence. Choose a client, choose a meeting this week to share your authentic perspective. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just get out there, be prepared to be a little bit messy and start to practice, because that's ultimately what's going to build confidence, and really focus on adding value to a conversation, adding value to a situation. Don't focus on being right, because you're not going to be right all the time. You're just sharing your opinion. It's one of my favorite sayings is, I'll say something and I'll just say, and that's just my opinion. You don't have to agree, right? Again, it takes a lot of the heat out of the perspective. And when you start speaking like this, just notice how people tend to respond when you speak with conviction rather than from a place of just not speaking at all, or from a place of weakness, I might say, because you're just apologizing. And that's not a strong frame to come into any conversation. And I've got another pocket coaching that you'll be getting next week, and I'll be talking about how to talk to different personality types, because asserting yourself with something called a controller or a red in disc profiling, they can be a little bit more difficult. So if you're not confident, that's going to pose a problem. So here's what I recommend. Those are the 3 steps. Here's some things to think about this week. Where do you need to speak up more? Where do you need to speak more? Where do you need to challenge? And remember that the people around you need to hear your perspective. Your clients need to hear your perspective. If you have a team, they need to hear your perspective. Your family need to hear your perspective. And the important thing to remember is you're not trying to be assertive for your ego so you can be the big guy. And you're being assertive because your voice matters. And like Marcus learned, It's not about having perfect communication skills. It's really about trusting your own value enough to share it. So start small, practice saying what you actually think in low stakes conversation this week. And just remember that you already have valuable insights. You just need to trust them enough to speak up. Now, if this is the first time listening to the Pocket Coaching and you want to get notified about new releases, visit jwilliamscoaching.com/pocket, where you can enter your name and email address and get notified about new releases. Now, if this is the second or the 22nd time I'm listening, I just want to say a big, big thank you for your loyalty. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon. Take care.